This is a common conception when it comes to choosing the diet, vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Certain group of people tend to think that the non-vegetarian diet would be more protein-rich, nutrition-rich.
Along with the protein, they come with two other elements, which is the cholesterol and the saturated fat.
I also saw some very beautiful books you guys have written, Satvic Revolution, where you speak about 7 habits one must follow. What are those 7 habits?
Keep a clean body within, to eat an early dinner, eat living, wholesome and plant-based, to sleep like a baby, celebrate movement, which is all about moving our bodies, called nourish relationships.
What exactly happens if children consume packaged food regularly?
Any of these commonly found packaged foods, to realize that those ingredients don't belong inside our bodies, and to understand that a child's body is far more sensitive to anything that doesn't belong there. It will affect them more. It would affect an adult.
If we lead a Satvic lifestyle, can we actually reverse age and achieve that good skin and good hair? India, a land where purpose meets the spirit. A whole country gets fed on the sweat of the farmers and the blessings of the soil. We are a country of mothers who feed animals as lovingly as we feed our own kids. We are the land of the most intelligent brains. A land that gave yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, and many such rich ancient wisdom to the entire world. And yet, we run to the wild, wild west when we look for answers when it comes to our own well-being. I wonder why. Have we lost touch with our own roots? It is to explore this simpler side of the life that we have a power couple with us on today's episode of Maatehood, folks who reminded us to go back to our simple roots. You may know them by the name Satvic Movement. They are Subha and Harshvardhan Saraf. Hi Subha, hi Harsh. Thank you so much for being here today. I'm so happy to have you on Maatehood. And I've been wanting to have you for a long time, but finally it has worked out. So super, super thrilled. I've been following you guys for quite some time and hearing a lot about Satvic Movement. Would love to know more in details what is Satvic Movement all about and what inspired you to do this.
Thank you, first of all, for having us. I think we've been planning this for a long time and so glad that it's finally happened.
Yes.
We feel deeply honored that you invited us and allowed us to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Satvic Movement is essentially a health revolution that was started now about 8 years ago and made with the intention to help people, to help humanity reach the peak of their physical, mental and their spiritual health. So the habits that the lifestyle, the Satvic lifestyle is centered around are essentially keeping a clean body within, eating food that is full of life, sleeping deeply at night, moving your body and enjoying that time when you do so. Living a life where you are able to nurture all of your relationships, you have loving relationships with others. Then living a life of purpose where when you wake up every morning, you feel like you want to jump out of bed and not just drag yourself out of bed. And lastly, living a life in the state of surrender to the higher power. So these 7 habits clubbed together form the Satvic lifestyle, which is essentially the basis of the Satvic movement.
How beautiful. How beautiful. I think all of us are trying to achieve that at some level in some point in our lives. You're very young to do this. And usually what I have heard that your complete inclination towards a Satvic life or spiritual life starts from the age of 35. I don't know how much true that is and for how many people it is true. But you started this movement at a very young age. So what inspired you to do this?
For me personally, it was my own health problems. So when I was just 13 years old, when I was a very young girl, I was diagnosed with PCOD, and that led to being diagnosed with thyroidism after a couple of years. And as you can imagine, both of these diseases brought in a lot of negative effects in my body. The weight gain, the skin problems, the acne, the extreme levels of hair fall. And just to have so many health issues when I was so young, so small, going to school every day, just to have these health issues was very difficult, because you'd see others around you, you'd see other children around you who were living completely normal lives, whereas I was popping pills every day before breakfast, every day in the evening. I had to take 6 different tablets every day. So I think when I realized that there is another way, and this was when I turned 17, and I met one of my teachers, under whose guidance I learned that medicines or pharmaceuticals don't have to be the only way to live life, and there can be another way which can truly heal you, which can truly give your body a complete reset. That's when my journey started, and I started living the lifestyle that I had learned from him, started adopting the practices which were exactly what I just shared with you a minute ago. And within about 3 to 4 months of really implementing those changes, when I went back to the doctors after a couple of months, every single disease from my body had completely eradicated. I no longer had thyroid. My TSH levels had come completely back to normal. My menstrual cycles became regular, which had never been regular before this. My whole childhood growing up, they were irregular. I wouldn't get them for six months on end. And after living this lifestyle, every single month I started getting them. My hair fall completely went away. My skin cleared up, came back to the optimal weight of my body. And now it's been almost 9 years since this journey started for me, and haven't had to take a single pill, haven't had to make a single doctor's visit in the last 9 years.
Very nice.
So I think that just experiencing this transformation in ourselves, and it automatically brought a deep desire to share this with others. That if we've experienced something so profound, so deep, so hidden, it never comes to the world, this knowledge. We just felt that this is not a desire, but a duty to share this with the world. And if we've been sent to this earth, perhaps this is the reason that God gave us these diseases at such a young age and made us witness this transformation, that we can spread this to others who are looking for a more natural way, who are looking to not be entangled in the, in medicines and pharmaceuticals and all the different industries that surround us.
I think that's a very beautiful thought. और जो भी आप कर रहे हैं वो बहुत सारे लोगों के लिए बहुत यूज़फुल है. If I talk about me, in my journey of building Maate, I have come across so many mothers, mothers who are trying to conceive or expecting babies and now raising children. They come across these difficult times when they're having certain diseases. किसी को PCOD है, PCOS है, और young children में भी बहुत common है. Thyroid is a massive problem. So there is a kid जिसको PCOD, PCOS का भी problem है या thyroid का problem है. Our first reaction is to go to the doctor. Of course, we have to diagnose it and then start taking the pills. But I think आपकी book में मैंने पढ़ा है, if your diet is good, the pill is not needed. And if the diet is not good, the pills are not going to work. But if the diet is good, the pills are not needed, right? Did I say it rightly? Okay.
It goes like when your food is wrong, medicine is of no use, and when your food is right, medicine is of no need.
So you are saying कि हम अपनी diet से और अपनी food से इसको completely eradicate कर सकते हैं, cure कर सकते हैं. So if there's a mother or there's a young girl who's facing these challenges, what are the things she should immediately start following, or how would you guide them to, come out of this phase?
I think it depends a lot on their condition, depends a lot on their situation, depends a lot on the resources that are available to them to live this way of life. But again, it comes to the 7 habits that we share at Satvic Movement. And the first habit starts by keeping a body that's clean from within. So a lot of the health problems, whether it is PCOD, whether it is thyroid, whether it's infertility, all begin by what we call waste accumulated inside our bodies, or in Ayurveda what is also called ama, which is accumulated within our bodies. And it is said that most diseases in today's day and age, not all diseases, but most lifestyle chronic diseases actually begin from our gut. And when we eat food that's unnatural, which is denatured, which is highly processed, which is very away from its natural state. When we eat such food and it doesn't fully get digested within our bodies, and when it doesn't get digested, automatically it doesn't get fully eliminated also from our bodies. So what happens to the partially digested food or food that's not, well digested? It basically lies inside our body. It collects within our bodies and slowly ferments, decomposes within our bodies, and creates what we call toxins, what we call waste matter. And through the intestines, then this waste matter, through the blood vessels in our intestines, this waste matter essentially transfers to all the different organs in our body, whether it's the pancreas, whether it's the ovaries, whether it's the the arteries. And whichever organ it starts to affect the functioning of, that's the disease that manifests. So if it is causing if these toxins are causing an interruption in our ovaries, it automatically causes diseases like PCOD, like irregular menstrual cycles, extreme pain when we have our cycles. So the root cause is that we as a society, when we think about cleansing, we only think we have to clean our bodies from the outside. But the kind of lifestyles we are living today in the modern cities, it's extremely important that we pay as close attention to the cleansing of our inner bodies if we truly want to live a life of peak health. So the first step is to understand what is the cause of our health problems, which no doctor ever tells us, which nobody ever tells us. They just say that these are lifestyle diseases and these are meant to be there. They're normalized. But once we understand what the root cause is, only then can we work towards eradicating that problem from the root permanently from our bodies. So there's multiple ways you can work on cleansing the body from within, which we share, but that's the first step.
I think in today's world, we are consuming toxins in many, many ways, not just by eating stuff, but also what we apply on our skin. And even in the air, the environment is so polluted. It's very tough and it has become very difficult to lead a very simple life and clean lifestyle, I would say. So there's also, I think we should be following is preventive, preventive measures, so that we don't encounter that kind of situation, right? We don't reach that stage. And that can only happen when we start from a very young age. So a baby is born, for 6 months, they're not consuming any food. It's just breast milk or the formulas, Now, when the babies are introduced to solids, our first reaction is to give them, semi-solid foods and homemade food. Of course, we don't want to go for any packaged food and all. But I have been watching a video where you also spoke about, giving cow milk to babies, and you say that it's not, even for us, consuming cow milk is not healthy. So I would really want to know, what is the harm and what is the problem it can cause for us if we consume cow milk?
So the problem is not with cow milk, or it is not with animal milk. It is what we are getting today in the name of animal milk or in the name of cow milk. So traditionally, if we see all our Vedic texts, all our scriptures talk so much about animal milk, talk so much about milk being a nectar for the body, milk being absolutely essential for the body. And that is not incorrect. And because of what is stated there, these rituals, these traditions have passed down generations and generations and generations, and have also come to our habit. But what is hidden from us, the truth, the reality that is hidden from us, is how this milk is coming to us today. So there are multiple problems with it. And it all starts at the dairy farms. So personally, we have visited hundreds of dairy farms across the country, from Chennai to Delhi to Mumbai to different parts of India, and gone ourselves and witnessed the reality as to what's really happening. And what we found out was that when we see the Tetra Pak of a milk, we see there's a lush garden, there's a big field where cows are mooing and grazing and having good quality grass and have a lot of free space to walk and run. But when we visited these farms, what we saw was exactly the opposite, where there was one shed, and inside that one shed there's like 80 cows sticking to each other, side by side, tied to a 3-foot rope, and a 3-foot rope is not bigger than this, and the cow is not even able to turn around. The rope is so short that the cow can't even turn around, and this is not her life for 1 hour or one day. It is her life from the moment she comes to that farm to the moment she goes. For years and years she's staying like that without ever getting a chance to roam on open fields. Now when we say this, when we share this, people will be like, does this really happen? Because this reality is so hidden from us. It's so distant from us. We are drinking the milk, but we don't know who is this cow
in the background.
Who is this mother whose milk we are drinking. So the cramped conditions is one problem. The cows are urinating at that same place, their feces are at that same place, extremely unhygienic. Apart from that, the cows are injected at least once to twice a day with a hormone called oxytocin, which the farmer just goes and injects it into the cow so that the cow can give more milk. Because in the dairy industry, a mother cow and her child are not allowed to be together. So as soon as a mother gives birth to a cow, the baby is separated from the mother, because if the baby is allowed to be near his or her mother, he would automatically drink all her milk. And what would the farmer have then? He wouldn't have anything to extract for himself or to sell. So the moment the baby is born, within a few days, within a few hours even sometimes, the baby is gone, they're separated from the mother. And now when the mother sees that my baby is not there, any mother produces milk for her baby. So when the mother sees that my baby is not here, automatically she stops giving the milk. She doesn't give as much milk. And when she doesn't give as much milk, the farmer has no option but to inject her with the hormones. And these hormones are extremely dangerous, which are then transferred to her milk, and then when we drink it, to us, and when a child drinks it, to them. So the problem is not with milk, but it is with the milk that is coming to us today. Is simply not milk. Like when we think milk, we think of this pure liquid coming from a wonderful source, clean. But what we're getting today is not coming even from a mother cow, but it's coming from the cow who we are treating as nothing more than a machine. So the pain, there's actually studies that have been done which show how whatever condition the cow is in, whatever feelings she's experiencing, those feelings are transferred to the milk in the form of her hormones. So when they did the study, they found that cows which were living in very painful conditions have high levels of cortisol in their milk, which is nothing but stress hormones. So those same stress hormones are essentially getting transferred to the milk and then to us, to whoever who drinks it. So that's why at Satvic Movement we have been promoting and advocating a plant-based lifestyle, which means that you can get all the nutrients you need, everything you need, every good thing you need from plants, and you can make milks from plants, whether it's coconut milk, almond milk, sesame milk, and that can give you everything that you possibly need to grow.
Very well said. I'm a vegetarian myself, but milk is one thing which is a very easy to consume food, I would say. And as a mother, when kids are leaving to school in the morning, the easiest thing I could give is like a glass of milk, right? When they're in rush, it's just very easy to feed them. So, and even for me, my day starts with a chai. For me, it's more of a comfort food. Now, I cannot think of an Indian masala chai without milk. So what could be the healthy alternatives to it?
So since we've been doing this for many years, you can imagine we've been asked this question many times.
I'm sure.
And since we also take a lot of pride in being very practical.
Yes.
One thing is to be theoretical and explain the logic. But then when it comes to actually implementing the lifestyle, if there's no right options, then people will go back to their default habits.
Yeah.
So we've tried to craft multiple kinds of alternatives to the typical Indian masala chai that we have in our food books. And now
I would love to know because मुझे सुबह से शाम तक 20 बार बोला जाता है चाय छोड़ दो सब ठीक हो जाएगा. So
तो वो भी हम भी यही बोलते हैं कि चाय छोड़ दो, but then there's something which we suggest which is a transition. So you don't immediately swap over to no tea because then that habit is so strong. We suggest these herbal tea options, which is obviously not the same, but will give you that comfort that you look for. And there's also one masala tea alternative which is supposed to be all very similar. So that uses all the Indian spices and it uses a plant-based milk. So that does taste a lot more like what you would have every morning.
So which plant-based milk is it? Oat milk and all?
No, so we usually suggest either coconut or almond because they're easiest to make. And you can make them in your own kitchen. But that's not, you could use any plant-based milk. The mix of the spices is what gives that same flavor.
The recipe we have in our book is called No Chai Masala Chai.
No chai masala chai.
What is the thought behind that?
There's no tea leaves, but it's a masala chai.
But it feels a lot like the original.
I think chai is an emotion. It's more than the urge to drink. It's more like, I mean, for me, it's about like whenever I'm stressed or I'm tired, okay, let me have a cup of tea or a cup of chai. That comforts me. So that is what leads to it. As a mother, one of the biggest challenge which I face today is keeping my kids away from packaged food. It has become very, very challenging. And I always tell ki purane time mein, like for our parents, it was very simple, much simpler, kyunki options hi nahi the. So there were very few things they had to say no to, be it the packaged food, the alternatives, the options in the market, or screens for that matter. Half the energy is wasted on saying no to screen time today. So how do you suggest that parents can actually adopt this Satvic lifestyle for their children from a very young age?
Since you mentioned you yourself are struggling with this.
Yes.
I would be curious to know at which time of the day or at which phase in their life are they most demanding the packaged foods? Are there certain scenarios where this is more troublesome for you?
I think that usually it happens when they have company. So they have friends and cousins who are the similar age, and then this joy and excitement comes in, and then they think, okay, now we need to do something or we need to eat something, have this little party time together. And that is where the biggest demand comes in. When they're all by themselves at home, so हम लोग का एक set rule है कि सिर्फ Saturday में ही हम कुछ बाहर से मंगा सकते हैं, नहीं तो homemade खाना खाना है. So we follow that. But it gets triggered when they have company and they have friends and cousins who also want to demand similar things.
Interesting. It's like the group energy now, we can't say no to us.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that is what happens. And I think also if you're traveling, it becomes a bit challenging. Yeah, for school mein, functions mein. So that is where it becomes a little bit of a... I really feel sometimes कि I wish मैंने उनको कभी मैंने इतना expose नहीं किया junk food के लिए या packaged food के लिए. But it's just out there everywhere. It's very difficult to keep them away, right?
Coming back to the question.
Yeah.
How to help reduce the amount of consumption of packaged foods. I feel the way we approach anything at Satvic Movement is first educate.
True.
We realize in our lives that if we aren't convinced ourselves of anything, the ability to do that is greatly reduced because then you're relying only on willpower. And how much can you exercise willpower? But the moment we understand the reason, the logic, the explanation, there's something that shifts inside, and now the brain is helping also say no to it along with your willpower because that has permeated through your being. So the education obviously should not be only theoretical, that I know it's bad, but why is it bad? What happens when I consume it?
Yes.
And in our experience, we have seen kids are smart.
Oh, yes.
Somewhere we think we are smarter than kids, but nowadays kids simply based on the questions they ask, the way they question you back when you say something, it just shows that, okay, they're processing every word you're saying.
Yeah.
So we have realized that step one is really bringing that awareness,
Yes.
not from a way that I'm older, I'm your parent, I'm going to tell you what's right or wrong. Wait, let's approach it neutrally. This is what it does to you.
Yeah.
This is what is inside that packaged food. And this, we deserve better. And we have seen kids respond really well when it doesn't come as a yes or no versus sort of breaking down what is it and what does it do to our body.
Yeah.
And sometimes kids surprise us that they become so strict that I will not consume it. Sometimes parents have to say, take it a little easy. It's okay once in a while.
Yeah.
Because but I know now, why should I? So the step one that we have realized often is neglected is the basic education awareness of what is in the packaged food.
True.
And how does it affect us.
True.
I think the last 1 year we have been conducting these seminars in a lot of schools in India, and we've created this film. It's a 45-minute film on packaged food, and just revealing the truth behind it. I think when we think packaged food, our knowledge stops at, okay, it's unhealthy, it makes us unhealthy, it makes us gain weight, it makes us diseased, but that's what it stops at. But this film goes very deep into this reality and really brings out what really is in these packets.
Yes.
And deconstructs these packaged foods, tells what each ingredient is. If a packet says INS something something or E something something, or it says maltodextrin, what do these things even mean?
Yeah.
So we went to many different schools in India and showed children this film, and you won't believe it. Like, we thought, will children even respond? Are they too molded into their habits? But we were surprised when we saw that kids were just like, it felt like someone was just waiting to tell. They were just waiting to hear this.
Yes.
And once they heard it, they became so passionate about not just not consuming packaged food, but not allowing someone to cheat them, not allowing these packaged food companies to cheat them and make them believe something and write something on the front of the pack which is not true inside the pack. So I think children are rebels at heart, and if we're able to invoke that spirit in them, that these packaged foods are not just bad for you, but they're lying to you on your face. They write sugar-free in the front of the pack, and at the back of the pack they're adding 3 different types of hidden sugars. And once children realize that and they understand that, children won't not have it only because it's bad for them, but they won't have it because they don't want to be lied to by someone. They don't want to be lied to by a company. So I think when we're able to invoke that sense of that these packaged food companies are hiding something from us, and not that don't eat it because it's bad for you, that's when children change.
Yeah, so I read about your youth movement, and I think it's such a good movement that you're running. I was just going to come to that because at home it's easier to explain and tell children, but जो एक awareness education schools में होती है, that leaves a lasting impact on kids, and that is very much important. And it's very important that these educational systems and schools are also equally involved in explaining to children that what is healthy and what is not. So at my kids, for example, at their school, they frequently talk about healthy food, healthy diet. And I do hear my kids coming back and talking about with me, Mama, sugar is not good, or processed food is not good, or this is not good, that is not good. So that sense of awareness is now coming in, and I feel it has to be at home as well as at schools, because that is where they spend majority of their times. So I'm sure this movement is giving you a very good, very rewarding feeling, right, when you are conducting these sessions.
Yeah, 100%. I remember even when we used to do workshops in the past, which were attended by adults predominantly, but they automatically used to bring their children.
Yeah.
And I used to notice that when we were talking about health, or when we were talking about these topics, adults are usually so molded into their habits because they've been living that way since 30, 40, 50 years. And when you ask them to change, they'll understand it. They'll understand it's not good for them. They'll understand it's affecting their lives negatively. But they won't change just because the habits are so strongly grounded into habit. So I think, but with children it's very different.
True.
Because they're not so molded into their habits. It's much easy to transform them towards a cleaner way of life.
Yeah.
It's almost like a spark, and then they are their
Yeah, they
own.
become your advocates, right?
Yeah.
They are going to bring the message across. I also run a foundation, and through the foundation, we run a program called Adolescent Education, Health Education, and we also do workshops across the school. And these workshops are all centered around girls' health, right? Health and well-being during adolescence. So we do have sessions where we explain to them what their bodies are going through, the kind of hormonal changes they can expect emotionally, physically, mentally, what are they going to feel in next few years, and if they're feeling a certain way, why they are feeling that way. So we do this session where usually the girls are not very open to asking questions when it concerns their bodies. So we do this little session where we just ask them to write their questions on a slip, like without putting their names, and then we send it across to the doctors, to the gynaes. And the amount of questions we have, that really opens up our mind. Like, there's so much which needs to be done. There's so much education which needs to be done, because children do want to know more. They do want to know everything about themselves, whether it is about their physical health, mental health, or emotional health. And I'm sure the same response must have come to you when it comes to their diet. And we have been seeing this massive awareness towards leading a healthy lifestyle from past few years. So that definitely, everything comes together. But coming back to the packaged food, could you please deconstruct it for me? Like, what exactly happens if children consume packaged food regularly?
What exactly happens when children consume packaged foods regularly? I feel packaged foods are, in many of our videos, we do show exactly what goes inside any of these commonly found packaged foods, to realize that those ingredients don't belong inside our bodies. And to understand that a child's body is far more sensitive to anything that doesn't belong there. It will affect them more than it would affect an adult. So when we realize that the amount of oil or the amount of sugar or the amount of maida that is put in, whether it's a biscuit, a cookie, a chips, pizza slice, which is processed, is almost 80-90% of the main packaged food is from these three ingredients: sugar, oil, and maida. And then to realize that's all that is, with some flavors added to it, that we are feeding our children. I think just seeing through the pack and those ingredients, and realizing that these ingredients are not going to help our children be smarter, taller, stronger, brighter. They're going to dull them down. They're going to make them overweight. They're going to make them conditioned to have more and more of just that. So I think the science is actually quite straightforward, that these ingredients are not supporting the growth of our children, and these products are full of these ingredients. And you could pick up any product and you'll be like, these are the three things. They're just using different combinations of these three because they are all addictive. And the child will want more, and the parent eventually will give in, be like, "Theek hai, just take it." So I think that's sort of the simple behind the scenes as to what goes on with packaged foods in our bodies.
Is there any simpler way for moms to read these labels and figure out what is good and what is not?
Yeah, I think reading labels is extremely easy as a skill. And in our schools, when we're growing up, we're taught mathematics, chemistry, biology, English, science, everything. We're even taught how to code. To an extent, we learn how to cook. But today, as a society, when we're eating so much of our food coming from packets, we're not taught how to read labels. So we believe that in today's day and age, in this century, it is more important to understand how to read labels so that we don't get fooled than to know even how to cook or how to code, for that matter. So I think that we can break it down into a couple of steps as to how to read labels. Number one is spot the hidden sugars. So sugar, as we know, is refined white sugar, is nothing but a slow poison for our bodies. And as Harsh said, the amount of sugar that is added to these products is not 1 tablespoon or 2 tablespoons or 3 tablespoons. It's outrageous. It is like 30, 40 tablespoons often in a big packet of something, or it's like 30% of the pack could just be sugar. So it is to spot these hidden sugars, which we won't get to know just by trying to search for the word sugar, because often companies use words that are not called sugar, but they use industrial sugars, which are as harmful as sugar, but they don't have to be called sugar.
So it's like a trick, no?
Yeah.
But to call it something else.
True. Yeah.
So anything on a packet
That is where it becomes difficult for
exactly
people to actually identify.
So anything that on a packet ends with OSE, so glucose, maltose, dextrose, sucrose, anything that ends with syrup, so
Corn syrup, inverted
syrup, anything that ends with SE, was it?
That's OSE.
OSE, OL. So anything that ends with OSE, OL or syrup. So OL is maltitol, xylitol, sorbitol. All of these are nothing but hidden sugars. They're as harmful, maybe even more harmful than refined white sugar. But when we spot it in an ingredient list, we won't know even what it is, right? We won't know what maltitol is, so we'll just ignore it. But it's nothing but sugar. So that's the first step to identify how to read ingredient lists. The second very important one is to know that when you flip the packet of anything, whether it's chips, whether it's biscuits, whether it's noodles, whether it's instant noodles, always remember that the first ingredient in the ingredient list is the highest quantity used, and the last ingredient is the lowest quantity used. So ingredients in any ingredient list in the world, as government mandates, are written in descending order of weight. So the ingredient used in highest quantity will always be the first one. So on the front of the pack, they might say something like spinach atta noodles. But you turn the pack and you will read that spinach is the last ingredient. And it says over there, it is used 0.5%. So they call it spinach atta noodles, which makes you believe that, oh, this noodle is made of spinach. It must be healthy. It must be green. But you turn the pack around and it says 0.5% spinach. So don't get tricked by misleading marketing by just determining the front of the pack. You have to turn the pack around and understand what is really in there. And this whole trick that is used by the industry is called greenwashing, where they write something on the front of the pack to make us believe कि यही होगा, but पीछे देखेंगे तो बहुत कम वो यूज होता है, but वो उसको फिर वो बोल सकते हैं अपनी marketing में to make us feel that it's healthy. Same way, you'll buy strawberry Jim Jam cookies for your child thinking, oh, strawberry Jim Jam cookies, इसमें तो बहुत strawberry होगा. But you turn the pack around and you will see there's no strawberry at all. There's no real strawberry. There's just artificial strawberry flavor, which doesn't even come from a farm, which doesn't even come from a real fruit. It's just a lab-made synthetic fragrance of strawberry, which is made by chemicals in a lab. So identifying these hidden ingredients and knowing how to read an ingredient list, and if we're able to teach our children how to read ingredient lists, it goes a long, long way.
I always feel like, let's take an example of ketchup, right? We buy these regular ketchups off the shelf in the market. Then there are certain brands which are now coming up with all healthy alternatives to ketchup. But I see people always tend to incline towards the regular ketchup. Are there any addictive ingredients in those kind of products which
Just
make you...
Sugar. That's it.
Yeah.
You should see how much sugar there is in that ketchup.
Because if you taste it, they taste very similar, right?
There's more sugar than tomatoes in tomato ketchup.
Yeah.
So we call it sugar ketchup. Why calling it tomato ketchup?
Yeah.
Because it's primarily sugar. And the body, when we eat sugar, it gets the message that eat more of this. It's keeping you alive. It's keeping you awake. Eat more of this. So it's very addictive.
Every time you pop sugar, there's a dopamine release in the brain.
Yeah.
And that dopamine release gives your body a signal that eat more, eat more, eat more.
Yeah.
So there's so many experiments that have been done which prove that sugar is actually more addictive than cocaine. And when we say sugar is addictive, people are like, हाँ, addictive होगा, ठीक है. but it's actually addictive in the same way many of our drugs are addictive. We don't realize the gravity of this, that sugar actually makes us, once we start eating it, we can't stop. No matter how much willpower we have, no matter how much self-control we have, we just can't stop because we become handicapped by that packet, handicapped by that sugar. So the fact that companies are just pouring in this ingredient in our children's processed food, to be honest, like for us, it makes us so angry almost, that how can you do this to our children's health?
I can very well resonate with that, because I remember when I started Maate, so the thought was same, that it has to be an all natural vegan product for children, because skin is the biggest organ in your body, right? So what you consume, what you eat, of course, it affects your body, but also what you apply badly affects your body, because it immediately gets absorbed in your bloodstream. So I wanted to come up with a product which has no chemicals, even no fragrances, colors, because the market was flooded with these products which just smell very good, feel very good. But there was a massive lack of awareness towards what is really healthy for children, right? What kind of skincare products to use for children. And a lot of alternatives came in, even they claim to be natural, but then again, there is a lack of awareness to really understand. Just saying natural doesn't make it natural, right? Even if you're like, I guess by law, even if you're just 30% natural, you can call yourself natural. So we also want to make parents very much aware of what you apply on your child's skin. So there also reading label becomes very essential. For example, the massage oil. So there have been many massage oils in the market which are full of mineral oils. So now it says it's 100% natural oil, but it's mineral. So parents have to really know what is healthy and what is not healthy. And I would say what you're eating, of course, reading label becomes very essential, but also they should be reading the labels of the products they use for kids and also for themselves. And I think you're also promoting that till some extent.
Yeah, 100%. I think we have a saying at Satvic Movement, which might sound a bit extreme, but if you just can get the essence of it, which goes like, जो आप खा नहीं सकते वो आप स्किन पे लगा नहीं सकते. So if you won't put it in your mouth, don't even put it on your skin. Because our skin has millions of small little pores, and anything we apply on it is essentially getting absorbed inside. So if you're applying toxic fragrances, applying these colors, applying creams and moisturizers which are full of chemicals, ultimately it's all going inside. It's not just what we're putting through our mouth, but also what we're putting through our skin every day that our body is ingesting.
I totally agree with you. There's this whole madness in the market right now about using different products, the retinols, there's that, anti-aging. But if we lead a sattvic lifestyle, can we actually reverse age and achieve that good skin and good hair?
So aging is a natural process of our bodies. We wouldn't say you can stop aging even if you follow a sattvic lifestyle, but you can age much more slowly. You can age much more gracefully. That's what you can do if you're starting to get aches and pains in your body in your 40s or in your 50s. You're starting to feel like you can't do many things in your life, like you can't jog, you can't climb the staircase or things like those. When you're following a sattvic lifestyle, there's no question of not being able to do all these things because your body is so alive, it's so full of energy, it's so full of prana that you can operate it at a very high frequency. So you can't stop aging even through a sattvic lifestyle. I don't think anything can stop the human body from aging, but you can age slowly and more gracefully.
For a woman who's just given birth, a new mother, hair fall is one of the biggest concern, right? And I think it has a lot to do with your hormonal changes, but also the diet you follow. So in this sattvic lifestyle, what do you suggest that what kind of diet she should follow to be able to retain, her hair back and grow it back? Because that is a very big concern new mothers usually have.
So the kind of lifestyle that we share about at Satvic Movement, it is not like there is a different food or a different diet for every health problem or like a different pill for every ill. There's a single sort of lifestyle that we ourselves practiced to get rid of our health problems
Yeah.
that we share at Satvic Movement, and whoever is living the Satvic lifestyle, whoever is a Satvic practitioner is following today. And that lifestyle essentially helps you increase your level of health in your body. And when your level of health increases, all health problems, whether it is hair fall or whether it's PCOD or whether it's not being able to conceive, are automatically healed.
Yeah.
So the way of life or the diet that we are sharing is not focused around different health problems as much as it is in raising your health. Like an example is that if, let's say, right now the electricity in this room completely goes and it gets pitch dark in this room, and someone comes and says, oh my god, it's so dark, this darkness is just ridiculous, let's try to fight this darkness. And they bring some ammunition and some gear and some weapons to try to fight the darkness. We'll look at that person and we'll be like, how stupid is that? Like, how silly. You can't fight the darkness. You just light up a candle, light up a bulb, and the darkness will go on its own accord. So it's very similar that within our bodies, when there's disease is synonymous to the darkness. So you can't fight disease. You can't do something to get rid of it. You simply bring health. You simply light this bulb of health, and the disease automatically goes on its own accord, because disease is nothing but a fall in your level of health. It's a symptom of a fall in one's health level. So the food that we share about eating living food, which means eating food that comes as close to Mother Nature as possible, doesn't come from factories. It's not heavily synthesized and made in factories, but is as close to its natural state, which means grains, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, sprouts, these kinds of foods. Second, we share is food that is wholesome in nature, which means food that, whatever the earth gives to us, eating it in as similar of a form as it gives it to us. So when we refine it, like the earth gives us sugar cane, but we refine it so much that we convert it to white sugar. So it's become totally denatured now. It's got nothing that the earth gave us. All it's got from the earth is its sweetness, the mithas. But every nutrient that was there in the sugar cane has been leached out of that sugar. Or when we think of oil, the earth gives us whole fats. The earth gives us coconuts. It gives us peanuts. It gives us nuts. It gives us seeds. But we extract the oil, which is okay. But then we chemicalize that oil so much. We deodorize. In the industry, it goes through deodorization. It goes through bleaching. And it's denatured from its natural state. And then we get something called refined oil, which is used in most restaurants, in most street foods. So, and the last is, not eating food that comes after causing any sort of violence to another being. So when we think about animal products, or when we think about meat, or when we think about fish, eggs, there's a violence that we are intentionally or unintentionally causing to another living being. So following a plant-based lifestyle, which means getting your nutrients, getting your food from plants and not from hurting our animal friends. So these 4 principles: eating food that's living, so nothing that comes from heavily synthesized and then put in a packet bottle, tin box. Eating food that's wholesome, so eating food in its natural state. Instead of sugar, you eat jaggery or dates. Instead of refined oil, you eat cold pressed oil or whole fats. Eating food that is plant based, so eating food that's comes from the earth, comes from trees, bushes, plants. So these simple laws, these 3 simple laws, essentially, if one is able to live, you bring back that light in the body, you bring back health in the body, and disease or darkness goes on its own accord.
Absolutely. If we talk about natural foods, like plant-based food, what I'm seeing in the market today, I was watching this video of yours where you spoke about eat real food. So food which actually gets rotten is the real food. Now, if I go to the market today, I see mangoes lying there, which is not a seasonal fruit right now. Do you think that's also processed, and even some sort of alteration is going on, even with real food? And If so, what are the ways that people can actually go for the right kind of real food?
So, one law that is, a law is that we humans ought to follow, we would naturally follow had we not been so conditioned or been living in these cities, would be eating food that is seasonal in nature. So that means that if it's winter, we eat food that's naturally grown in our season. We eat oranges and we eat all the fruits and vegetables that are grown in winter. And when it's summer, we eat mangoes and all the fruits and vegetables that are grown in the summer. But today, because of the city life that we live in, there's huge cold storages where whether it's a mango or an orange, it's allowed to be stored for months on end and stay there and then come to us in the next season, which is not its natural season. So we wouldn't say that these unseasonal foods are highly toxic for the body or anything. Compared to a processed food, they're nothing. But they don't have as much life force as they would have had they been in their season. Because when something is plucked from the tree, when a fruit is plucked from the tree, when it's on the tree, it has the most life force inside it. And then the more time it spends after it's plucked, the life force keeps dipping. A beautiful analogy that one of our team members shared to explain this was, imagine your phone. When it's connected to the charger, it has, let's say, full power, it has full battery. And then you plug the charger out. And the more time it spends outside, the battery keeps reducing. Same way with the fruit. When it's connected to its branch, it has full energy. But when you remove it from its branch, its energy keeps dipping. So when you're eating unseasonal fruit, you're essentially eating food that's like been in a cold storage for 8 months, 9 months. What is its power like? What is its battery like? What is its energy like? It's simply not as much as it would be if it were plucked right in the season. So eating seasonal is something which is a natural law of life. And whether it's fruits, vegetables, the more we eat in season, the more life force our food will have.
Now I feel like moving to a farm. My husband has been trying that for quite some time. And I'm like, I'm not sure if that's going to work for us, but I think now growing my own food and having maybe a cow there. So there's another thing which I see is at rise these days is the autoimmune diseases. So a lot of skin problems, even psoriasis. So I saw this video on your channel where you were talking about how you helped this woman completely cure psoriasis. But if we talk in regular terms, they say it's a lifestyle problem and there's no cure to it. So I really want to know like how you helped her and what are the kind of things you changed in her lifestyle to be able to achieve this.
So to answer your particular question, we didn't necessarily help any individual personally. The way we share this knowledge is through our videos and workshops. So there's very little or actually no one-on-one interaction. And the knowledge itself is so easy to understand that when you understand the logic and the basis, then you have all the tools that you need to be able to implement this new lifestyle. And that lifestyle is a healing lifestyle. And that internally gives your body the energy to start removing all the toxins, which Subha spoke about earlier. And once those toxins start coming out and the light of health glows, then there is no space for disease. So specifically in the case of psoriasis or whether any skin problem or any autoimmune problem, the Satvic lifestyle does not discriminate. It does not put diseases or health issues into categories. And I know it's very disappointing because people want something that is more specific and personalized and for them. And this comes across as, oh yes, if everything's the same, then how will it work for us? But really, the way our bodies are designed, the way our bodies work, there is a very simple code of conduct. And if you put in something that doesn't belong there, the body is going to find a way to get rid of it. And the skin often is one of those channels which bears the brunt of these things that don't belong inside us. And you also mentioned earlier, it doesn't only mean through our food. It could be through our breath. It could be through the makeup or the cosmetics. And a more subtler form, it could be through our thoughts, which aren't supporting a very easy way of living. So those also can convert into, again, the word may be vague, but what we call toxins. And the skin is our largest organ and is often, the way where the body expresses these toxins through. So number one is to obviously remove the source of these toxins. And easier said than done because it's not always tangible. But the entire Sattvic lifestyle, the 7 habits, there's a reason the 4 habits are physical and tangible, and then there are 3 habits which work on the subtler levels of our being, on our relationships with each other, on a career or profession where we spend majority of our waking day, on our relationship with the divine. And when we are able to resolve and bring ease into these subtler layers, slowly and gradually the toxins reduce, and our bodies need to express these toxins through the skin or any channel for that matter reduce. This is a very different way of seeing it than how allopathy doctor would see it, and requires a very different approach, but that's how we have learned it, and that's how it makes intuitive sense to us. And that's how people who also believe in this and practice this way of life are able to get great results. So we feel, don't complicate it, keep it simple, don't stress about it, and don't try to get too caught up with the name, because these names have been given by us in the last 100 years. These names didn't exist before that. But these health issues were there earlier, and they were able to resolve them by the right lifestyle.
Also, like whenever we have a health issue, whether it's psoriasis or any problem, we are so conditioned to believe that the solution lies somewhere out there, right? Like we think that there's a fix outside that will go inside and heal me, or there's a pill outside or a treatment outside that will heal me. But we forget that the best and the most powerful force that actually heals us is not sitting somewhere outside. It's sitting right within, and that's nothing but our healing power. That's nothing but what we at Satvic Movement also call our Pran Shakti, which is this magnificent force of nature which has the power to heal just about anything, given that we give it time, given that we don't keep distracting that inner power into digesting heavy foods, into extreme stress. But if we let it do its work, the biggest health problems can be reversed. And one way to understand this is through, like, when we get a fracture. If anyone ever gets a fracture, let's say the arm, the bone gets broken in the arm, if you go to the hospital, you go to the clinic, what the doctor will do is simply put a plaster on it, and the plaster will hold that bone in just one place. It will hold it stationary. But it's not like there is some special magic in that plaster. Ultimately, after a few months, that big broken bone, imagine, like, breaking of a bone is the biggest thing that can happen inside our body, that our body has to deal with. But in a few months, it joins itself back together. So what is that force that joins it back together? It is what we call our Pran Shakti. Right now, we are sitting and we are talking, and our heart is beating. We're not having to tell our heart that beat now, but it's beating. Or our lungs are contracting and expanding, or our digestive system is releasing all these digestive juices. All these processes and many innumerable other processes in our body are happening automatically. We don't realize it, but there is a force that's making it happen. It's our body's inner intelligence which is making it happen, which we call our Pran Shakti. And whether it was the Egyptians, whether it's the Chinese, whether it's modern medicine, all systems of medicine agree that there is a power inside us that heals us. They all have different names for it, but all agree that there is this healing power. So once we realize that healing, the force that heals us is not outside but inside, and all we have to do is support this healing power in its work. We spoke a lot about by eating the right food. Another way to support this healing power is by giving it break from constant digestion, because when we keep eating all the time, this healing power is engaged in what? day and night, like before our breakfast gets digested, we put in our lunch. Before lunch gets digested, we put in the evening snack. Before the evening snack gets digested, we put in the dinner. Before the dinner gets digested, we put in the after dinner snacks and the midnight snacks.
Yeah.
So all the time, this power inside us is just digesting. So if it's digesting, there's no wonder it won't get time to heal, to cleanse.
Yeah.
And one example is, let's say if you're in this room and there's a lot of trash accumulated in this room. Imagine there's like litter, there's trash, there's waste everywhere in this room. And imagine that there's someone who's trying to clean the room and they're wiping the floor, they're mopping the floor. And after a few minutes, there's a doorbell that rings and someone comes and they're like, oh, we have come, now you have to attend to us, there's some guests who've come. The person who was cleaning the room will be like, okay, he'll leave his mop aside, he'll leave his broom aside and he'll start attending to this guest.
Yes.
And then the guest will go. But after some time, another guest comes and then he also needs attention.
Yeah.
So again, the cleaner will attend to the guest and won't get a chance to clean, to repair the room. So same way within our bodies, this healing power is already present inside us, but we keep putting in food all day, all night, and it's just digesting. So if we give periodic breaks to it by the practice of fasting, automatically we're able to give our healing power, our pran shakti, the time it needs to do all the fixing. And in that time it gets, by fasting, it is able to heal any health problem, any chronic health problem it is able to heal, be it acne, be it psoriasis, be it dermatitis, any health problem, because this pran shakti doesn't distinguish ki iska ye naam hai, iska ye naam hai. It just sees something in the body needs fixing and it goes there and starts doing that repair work.
Yeah. Whatever little research I did about autoimmunes and these issues that we face, it has a lot to do with stress also. So when it comes to your mental health and well-being. So what do you want to say about that? Like how your mental health is connected with your physical health, and most of these issues, can they be caused by your stress and mental health issues?
Yeah, 100%. We believe that your physical health, your mental health, your spiritual health is like a triangle. They're all connected to each other. And if there is a problem in one, it is bound to reflect in the other. So if you are constantly anxious, if you're constantly stressed, if something's troubling you here all the time, the effect is bound to come here. Your digestion will simply not work as well. Your food will simply not digest as well when something's happening, something wrong is happening here. So when digestion doesn't happen well, then it begins a series of other processes, begins the creation of toxins within the body. Those toxins go in different organs, accumulate there and interrupt the functioning of those particular organs and cause disease. So working on one's physical health when the mental health is disturbed is quite futile.
Yeah. Speaking for our audience, which is majorly new mothers and expecting mothers, after you give birth, it becomes a very stressful phase, as in like you don't get enough sleep, you're constantly busy with the baby, and there's so many questions and unknowns in your mind, like how to deal with this or that. So naturally you're bound to have a lot of stress. So how do you suggest that these mothers, the new mothers, can actually deal with stress, and what are the simple steps they can take? What are the ways to handle this?
I feel like this is purely from observation that I'm sharing.
This is going to prepare you guys if in case you wish to have children ever.
Sure, only from an observational space. I feel whatever I've noticed with the young mothers around me, and there's a sense of getting it all right, being too perfect. And when we look back at the way we were brought up, our parents had too many children around to really focus on one. And we seem to have been brought up pretty decently. So just that observation that maybe so much attention and so much need to be perfect in getting everything right is not as important in the long-term success or whatever you want to determine of the child. And I think when you let go of, it's okay, not everything will go the way you want it always, and then that might just reduce the stress.
What I've also read that your gut health can massively affect your mental well-being and your anxiety. So how is that connected?
There's a beautiful proverb in our Indian culture which goes like Jaisa an vaisa man, which means as is your food, so is your mind. So it's very powerful because we think that the food we eat will impact our skin, will impact our weight, will impact how we look, will impact our energy levels, which is all true. But it has a very direct and deep impact on our thoughts also, the food we eat. So our ancient texts again distinguish food between 3 categories: Satvic, Rajasic and Tamasic. So Satvic food is pure food which in the Bhagavad Gita it is said that food which increases your lifespan, which means it makes you live longer. It's food that increases your energy. It's food that keeps you light and floating throughout the day. So this kind of food is said to be full of juice. It's said to be full of water. The first characteristic described in the text is that it's rasya in nature. So when you think of what is the food which is full of juice and full of ras, the first thing that comes to mind is fruits. So fruits are one of the most sattvic foods, and along with it, of course, grains, nuts, legumes, seeds, vegetables are all sattvic in nature. And when we eat sattvic food, we automatically start to become sattvic. And what is sattvic? Sattvic is nothing but that mode of goodness. So when we feel a sense of calm, when we feel a sense of peace, when we feel compassion for everyone around us, when we feel when we see something and we don't feel like tempted to enjoy it or indulge in it, but we are able to practice self-control, when we feel connected to Mother Nature, when we feel connected to the divine, to God, these are all characteristics of sattva, characteristics of sattvic. So when we eat sattvic, we become sattvic, we think sattvic. Same way when we eat rajasic food is that which is very pungent in nature. So it includes foods that are heavily spiced, dishes which are very spicy, very tikha, or overly spiced, overly cooked, or what we get in most restaurants today, or food which is extra salty or extra hot even, is all food which is rajasic in nature. बहुत मसालेदार जो खाना होता है. And rajasic food within the Bhagavad Gita, it said it makes you restless, it makes you lose your mental composure, it makes you anxious, it makes you agitated, it makes you, if you eat rajasic food in excess, it even makes you angry as a person. It increases the ego within us. And the last is tamasic food. Tamasic food is food which is dead, which is very different from rajasic food. Rajasic food is जिसमें बहुत spice होता है, बहुत pungent होता है, and tamasic food is which is just dead, very heavy, lifeless food. So most of the packaged foods we eat today are tamasic in nature because they don't have any life force inside them. They are basi essentially, and foods which are again coming from hurting other beings fall in the tamasic category. When we eat tamasic foods, when we overeat tamasic foods, we also become tamasic. And the characteristic of tamas is inertia, laziness, not wanting to do anything, just wanting to sleep and rest all day. When we feel like heavy and lazy and super lethargic, that's tamas. So whatever category of food we eat, that's the quality of the mind that will be. So it's as simple. The food we eat makes us either sattvic, rajasic or tamasic.
Could it be other way around as well? Like, for example, if somebody's natural tendency is that the person is very agitated, angry, restless, and then you often hear them say कि मैं तो सिर्फ spicy खाना खाता हूँ, मैं plain खाना खा ही नहीं सकता. So it has a lot to do with their natural tendencies as well, like the kind of food they prefer then.
100%. Actually, what you just said is exactly what the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 17, verse 8, 9 and 10 say, that foods that are sattvic are liked by those who live in the mode of goodness. Foods that are rajasic are liked by those who live in the mode of rajas, and foods that are tamasic are liked by those who live in the mode of tamas. So it's actually the other way around as per the original scripture.
So, if somebody is suffering with poor gut health and all, coming back to the same thing, are there any key foods or like a number of foods which you recommend are really good to start with to switch to the Sattvic lifestyle, and they should kind of make it a part of their everyday routine?
But to answer that question in a slightly different way,
Yeah.
when we look at a general population, not specific people, the number one way of improving the gut health is to actually just start eating less food in general.
Okay.
The tendency to overeat is a far bigger issue than not eating the right things. So if there were to be one blanket advice, and this is probably very hard to do because we love food and we love the feeling of feeling full, but if one were just to keep their stomachs 1/4 empty at the end of a meal, that means to fill it up only to 75%. So that you know you're still hungry, but then you say no because you know that it's enough, you've had enough. That alone will greatly increase the ability of the body to digest and improve gut health. So that's sort of a blanket that can apply to everybody. And then,
Have you ever heard of this term called Hari Hachibu?
Sounds familiar.
So, when researchers were trying to understand what makes people live very long lives, they came across this region called Okinawa in Japan, which, where we also learned about the Ikigai from. We also one of the blue zones. And Ikigai is, of course, one of the biggest factors which determines how long they live. But one of the other Japanese laws which determines how long they live is whether or not they follow Hara Hachibu, which is nothing but the Japanese translation for eat only until you're 80% full. So it's, for us, it's like, theek hai, thoda kam khayenge. But for them, it's such a deeply ingrained law that you cannot fill your stomach to the top before you leave the dining table. You have to leave a little space empty. And an analogy to explain this is that if you take a blender and you put ingredients in it and fill it till the very top, till the brim, and you switch the button, what will happen? Things just won't blend, right? For the blending to happen, you need to leave a little space empty. Same way within our stomachs. If we fill our stomach till the very top, it won't be able to digest. It won't be able to mix things up, release the digestive juices properly, and digest and break down our food. So one of the most powerful things we can do for our gut health is actually to eat a little less, to leave a little space empty before we get up from the dining table each day.
And I think it's a very good lesson for mothers as well, because we have this natural tendency of overfeeding our children. हमको हमेशा लगता है कि they're saying no because they are distracted, but they are actually saying no because they are actually full. So understanding that is very, very important. And children do not know the ways of expressing that I'm full, I don't want more. They have different ways of expressing this, but not really saying it to you out loud. And as mothers, I think we also need to give that kind of space to our children as well, not overfeed them all the time. And I even feel that sometimes even if they go without meal, for example, one time in a day, once in a while, that is also okay. So this stress needs to go away that we have to be after our children all the time, just eat, eat, eat. So that's a very good point that you've made there.
Absolutely.
Coming to the spiritual side of it, and that is something I'm really, really interested in. So we were just talking about it, like the spiritual awakening happens after a certain point in your lifetime. And but what is spirituality in its true sense?
That's a very big and deep question. And I think it's each person you ask will have a different answer to it. But for us, it is when we're able to recognize that there is a higher power, and each of us have different names for this higher power. Some call it God, some call it the universe, some call it the divine. But there is a higher power who is taking care of us at each minute, at each step of the way. This higher power is with us And when everything we do, every action we take, everything we speak is in alignment with that, is in alignment with that higher truth. That's for us living a spiritual life, where we are able to recognize that we are nothing but mere instruments in the hands of God. When we are nothing but just, He's doing everything He wants to do through us. And we are not the doers, but He is the ultimate doer. And we're able to live in that remembrance of Him and not become egoistic that I am the one, I am doing this. So the opposite of spirituality for us, it's living a life of ego. So I think that's what spirituality, the real essence of spirituality is for us.
I think in today's time, many of us are constantly seeking the simpler life, the peace, the calm within. Do you think spirituality is a way to achieve that?
Yeah. I think when we understand that connection with the divine, we stop trying to present ourselves a certain way where we are not. We stop trying to compete with others around us to show ourselves in a certain way and to be better than others. And we start realizing we are amazing the way we are. And we've been made this way. And when we utilize our skills rather than trying to want someone else's skills which we don't have, because these skills are amazing.
True.
And I think when we understand our role, that God has sent us to this earth with some skills, and that skills to use that for some purpose, then it just simplifies life. We don't feel jealous of someone else succeeding in some area, because we're like, let's make the use of our gifts. And when that simplicity comes, when that acceptance comes, I think the competition goes and its life becomes easy, life becomes simple. And there are times in life when things don't go the way we planned. And at that moment to remember, maybe this has also come to help us. Maybe this has also come to teach us something.
As they say, jo ho raha hai, achhe ke liye ho raha hai.
So you take a step back rather than reacting, be like, what could I have possibly to learn from such a bad scenario? And that detachment from that event or that scenario is peaceful, is simplicity, is you just sort of not laugh at it, but you smile at life, be like, wow, so many ways of learning. So I think for us, these simple laws, I mean, spirituality doesn't mean reading some very ancient text hidden somewhere in some temple. Simple at the end of the day. These are things our grandparents teach us. And when you simplify life and you don't try to be better than everyone else, and you be the best of who you are, what you've been given, it feels fulfilling. And sometimes you don't get the results, and that's okay, but you feel happy doing what you're doing. And I think that's a big gift we have received from the Satvic lifestyle. Apart from the health and the food and everything, just this simplicity and the joy within.
Feeling happy within, indeed. And I think this daily practice of kindness, compassion and gratitude, that is also a very important and crucial part of it. That has to become a part of your life. But when it comes to raising children, I keep coming back to that because that is our audience, the mothers. And I, as a mother, always have most of my struggles in today's time are revolving around, how to raise my children in a perfect way, As a mother, as today's parents, there's always this constant competition which is happening around us, right? The children have to do this, do that, they have to compete, they have to move forward, they have to achieve this, they have to be the biggest achievers and all. In such a high pressure environment, how can we actually help our children to stay grounded and maybe start practicing spirituality from a very young age?
I think I have a very different take on what you shared. That somewhere, and this is all again assumptions, that the mother has some insecurity within, that they need the child to succeed and fulfill to prove that they are good. If the mother is happy the way they are and they have their own goals, I don't think they'll have so much time to worry about every single thing that the child has to get right. And sometimes the children being left alone, they might figure out a better path than someone else bossing over them and telling them this is how you have to do things and this is different. So I think indulgence or overprotective and trying to get everything right somewhere may reflect that the mother has, I'm not saying the child is not the mother's priority. Of course it is, and I can't ever put myself in those shoes. But the mother needs to have life beyond just the child.
I think that's a very valid point you made, because mothers are children's world, right? And children, she is the first teacher, she is the first guidance they have, and they really look up to you. And till some extent, I would say both the parents, right? And the more grounded, the more calmer and more composed you are, you see that reflecting on your children as well. And as you said, if they feel happy within, that reflects on kids as well. When my children come back from school, there's just one thing I ask them every day. I don't ask them what you did, what happened in maths or science and this and that. The very first question I asked, okay, what one good thing happened today? What really made you happy? So I want them to think that first, like what is one thing they should be grateful for that happened to them today? And that is my priority, their happiness in true sense, like they realize that whatever they have in today's time is really something they should be grateful for. So yeah, I mean, you have very well connected the dots there.
And I also notice many times when the children grow up, at that time, especially mothers find themselves really lost. And because they've given everything to their child for the first 18 years, they really don't know much, or they feel very... So I find that it's important that the mothers realize that there will be a time when the child will not want you to be around. And then you need to know that you still have a life of your own, and to not let go and then suddenly look for it later, to maybe keep a balance.
Yes, absolutely. We actually had this conversation with multiple mothers on our previous episodes. We really... One thing is everybody talks about is balancing, which doesn't really happen. You always have like sometimes you give more of yourself to yourself, and sometimes to kids. It becomes very challenging. But I think loving yourself is a very, very crucial aspect of your motherhood journey, and prioritizing your health and well-being, and your mental health, your emotional well-being. That is a very, very important thing which every mother should focus on. So there's also a regular practice in Indian households where we give a spoon of honey to babies as soon as they're born. Do you think that is the right practice to follow?
A lot of the rituals that we follow today are often, we do it because our parents tell us to do it, or they do it because their parents told them to do it, and they do it because their parents told them to do it. But if we ever try to reason it, that why do we do this? Often we don't get a real answer, and all we are told is that ये तो अच्छा होता है, या फिर ये तो करते आए हैं बेटा, तो ये करना ही चाहिए. But if we are able to understand the logical reasoning behind it, and if it makes sense to us, then sure, it might make sense. But often these rituals are just passed down because either they're superstitious or they don't hold much ground in reality. When it comes to honey specifically as an ingredient, we believe that, again, our food should come from plants and not from animals. Because as soon as our food starts to come from other entities, other living beings, there's not just nutrition that we now have to account for, but we also have to account a lot for the energy of the food. When it comes from plants, there's nutrition that we are taking. But when any food is coming from other living beings, a lot of what it'll do to our bodies, the good or the bad, is decided by the energy of that being. So if the bees are not kept well, or if they, the extraction process of the honey is cruel in any way, then that honey cannot do us any good energetically. It just cannot. And often today the honey we are getting from bottles, from Tetra Packs, from the big brands, if you just read the ingredient list, don't even believe us, just if you read the ingredient list, some of the ingredients you'll read are emulsifiers and thickeners and refined sugar. So of course now there are levels to honey, how clean or how processed it is. But often the honey we get, the mainstream honey available in the market, is loaded with sugar. It's loaded with thickeners, and that seems so counterintuitive, because we're eating honey because we want to avoid sugar. But it's just not that.
Also, this is a common conception when it comes to choosing the diet, vegetarian or non-vegetarian. Certain group of people tend to think that the non-vegetarian diet would be more protein-rich, nutrition-rich, so it's okay to raise your children following a non-vegetarian diet. What kind of negative impact the non-vegetarian diet can have on a child's health and well-being?
So, non-vegetarian foods or meats, no doubt, are high in protein. They have abundant protein, and that's why they are recommended. But what we forget to add up is that along with the protein, they come with two other elements, two other things which we often ignore, which is the cholesterol and the saturated fat. So, of course, it's not, a child is young and he has the tolerance in his or her body to take in a lot before he falls sick. But when he or she keeps consuming it in the long run, it is bound. Saturated fat and cholesterol, essentially, when they go inside our bodies, increase the cholesterol levels of our own bodies. When the cholesterol levels of our bodies increase, inside our arteries there is a plaque that starts to get formed inside the small thin blood vessels that are connecting our heart to the rest of our body. There's a plaque that begins to develop, and then our heart has to put higher pressure to pump the blood through those plaque filled arteries, and here comes high blood pressure, here comes heart disease. Now it's not like a child will ever develop those diseases, but in the long run, what we experience at age 30 or 40 is not determined by what we start doing at age 30. It's determined by what we start doing at age 5 or age 10.
True.
So if you're consuming a diet full of meats, especially processed meats and animal-based foods, in the long run, when a child grows up, it could lead to many such health problems. And this is just the physical side of it. We feel like the physical side is important, but the more important is the subtle side to meat, which is not usually spoken about, which is that when we think of that chicken, or when we think of that pork or that mutton, we are seeing it as, if you ask a child, what is it? They'll be like, it's a chicken. And if you ask him or her, where did it come from? They'll say, it came from the supermarket. They won't ever connect the dots to the fact that it is that same pig that he or she was petting just in the pet farm a couple of days ago. So this connection is never made in a child's mind. And often if you make that connection in a child's mind, they might not be able to eat it actually, because children are not conditioned, and they don't have that conditioning that we adults do. When they see that my action, what I'm eating, was a living being, you will see that they will often feel repelled to it.
True. Totally agree with that. I also saw some very beautiful books you guys have written, and there's this one book, we say the Satvic Revolution, where you speak about 7 habits one must follow. Can you please give me more details around that? Like, what are those 7 habits and one should practice every day?
So habit 1 is keep a clean body within, and we share about practices which help you keep a clean body within. Habit 2 is eat living wholesome.
You can share the practices.
The first practice to keep a clean body within is to eat an early dinner. So eating an early dinner around 7 p.m. is extremely helpful in helping our body detox every night, have a deeper detox every night. The second habit we talk about is eat living, wholesome and plant-based, which we've covered, which we've spoken a lot about in the last hour or so. The third habit, which we've not covered, is to sleep like a baby. So this is, we spend almost 1/3 of our lives just sleeping. And never do we learn about sleep in our school, in our college, in our education system growing up. And we don't learn how the quality of our sleep impacts the quality of our waking hours. How deeply we sleep impacts how much energy we have when we wake up and we operate in the day.
True.
So within this habit, we talk about how do you achieve deeper sleep at night? How do you sleep so deeply that it is almost like how a child sleeps? Because it is said that children have the deepest sleep.
Yes.
And most of us adults are now having very light sleep
Yes.
or interrupted sleep. And often when we go to bed, some people take a lot of time to fall asleep.
Yeah.
But these are not natural processes. If we are truly healthy, we will have uninterrupted sleep at night, which means when we close our eyes at night, they'll open directly in the morning, not once in the night. And once our head touches the pillow, we will fall asleep within 5 to 7 minutes. It will not take us half an hour or 1 hour to fall asleep.
Yeah.
So that's what the third habit is about. And we talk about how one of the biggest villains in our sleep cycles today is technology. And looking at gadgets, looking at screens right before we sleep is not allowing us to get deep sleep.
True.
Then the fourth habit is called celebrate movement, which is all about moving our bodies and how we humans, like all the elements in nature, whether it is a blade of grass is constantly moving. If you see an animal, it's never still, constantly moving. If you see the sun, it's rising and setting. If you see the wind, it's constantly blowing. Everything in nature is in constant movement at all times. Yet we humans bound ourselves to one chair all day and only get up to go to the bathroom or go to our car or go to the elevator. And how this way of life, this sedentary way of life, is not what our bodies are made for. So incorporating movement in our day, even if it's just for an hour to begin with, is not helpful, but it's essential for our for health. The fifth habit we talk about is called nourish relationships. In this we cover how deeply of an impact relationships play in our health, and that's like the fifth ingredient in this recipe for ultimate health and joy. That when we have strained relationships with others, let's say today you and I have a fight about something, and it's been 5 years and we've not spoken about it, we've not we think we've forgotten about it. 5 years it's been, now who'll remember, and we think we've forgotten about it. But this habit talks about how the body keeps score of everything, every fight, every bitterness that we've experienced with another person. And until we let go of these unresolved relationships, unresolved emotions, again, it prevents us from. So these are the
so beautifully covered everything, which is so truly essential in everyday life for us to practice. And I just cannot wait to read the book and dig deeper into it. But there's just one habit which I would like to talk about in detail, which is nourishing and nurturing the relationships, because in parenting as well, it's a very, very important aspect. If the parents are not on the same page, and if they have constant fights and arguments, that very badly affect the child. It affects the child very badly. So what are the practices you suggest that if you're having such difficulties in a certain relationship, how can you deal with this?
One of the practices that we talk about in the book is called seek first to understand before being understood. And we feel that any conflict in the world, not just between two parents, but any conflict in the world, if this law is practiced, can be mitigated completely from the root. Because any conflict occurs because we want the other person to understand us. We want that what we feel, what we are going through, we want to make the other person understand that. But this habit talks about how if you seek first to understand them, you put yourself in their shoes so fully that you become them for that moment. You step into their life. You forget your thinking, what you are experiencing, what's in your head. You just take it out and you just step into their shoes fully, and you understand first and fully understand, repeat what they've said back to them until they also know you fully understood. And only after understanding you share what you feel or what you want them to understand. So it's right now I'm telling you in very brief, but the book is like through examples, through case, like through role plays, it shares about this whole thing. One of the examples we actually share is of a mother and a child, how once there's a child who comes back home and he tells his mother that, listen, I don't want to go to school anymore. And the mother's like, but why? And the child's like, I can't go to school anymore. And the mother's like, okay, tell me what happened. And the child's like, listen, I just said it, I don't want to go. And the child is angry. And the mother will also then get angry automatically, right? And the mother will be like, what are you even saying? Like, do you not realize how much your father and I have sacrificed to help you go to school? How much we sacrifice every day to fulfill the fees of your school? And the child will be like, again, revolt to that. The mother will again revolt to that. And it will lead into a fight, lead to bitterness. And the child will end up feeling as though the mother just never understands him or her, and he will bottle himself up and never share anything with his mother ever again. But on the other hand, if a mother at that time when the child is complaining is able to practice seeking first to understand before being understood, and when the child says, I don't want to go to school anymore, the mother doesn't say, oh, look how much me and your father have sacrificed. Instead, she says that, okay, you don't want to go to school, I understand. The child says, as soon as the mother understands, like a rose shedding its petals, the child opens himself up more to the mother and then is able to share and be more vulnerable. And when the mother again doesn't judge, doesn't compare, doesn't say this is right or wrong, but just understands, the child opens himself or herself even more. It's like an onion skin peeling until you reach the soft, tender core. And a child will only do that when they feel like their mother or their father is able to truly understand them and not judge them, not say ye sahi hai, ye galat hai. But if the child is able to know that my mom, my dad, they know me, they understand me, they will open up like nothing else. So seeking first to understand before being understood seems like a very simple practice, but it can resolve any conflict in the world.
Well, thank you so much, Subha and Harsh. I truly enjoyed this conversation, and there's so many takeaways for me to take home, and I must start practicing as soon as possible, I would say. Subha, Harsh, it's time that we dive into our Maatehood community Q&A, where we receive a question from one of our members from our Maatehood community. And today's question is from Neha. She's from Indore. She recently became a mother and is constantly being encouraged by her in-laws to increase her intake of protein as she's lactating. She wants to know what are some Satvic sources of protein-rich food.
Some of the most protein-rich foods are legumes, which includes all sorts of dals. So just, dal is something which is very staple in our Indian diets. But if you are able to increase your intake of dal, increase your intake of lentils, and even incorporate some chickpeas, kidney beans, sprouted dals in salads, that's more than enough. Apart from that, you can consume nuts and seeds. But more than that, it's important to know that there's no need to fuss over this protein so much. Yes, it's important. Yes, you must consume it. But there's no need to overemphasize on it, because our society is putting too much pressure on this one nutrient. And we are easily able to get it. There's very rare cases of people getting protein malnutrition. So just including lentils, including nuts, including seeds will do it.
Lovely. Now, moving on to the next segment, we call it more of a fun segment. And before we conclude, we will move on to that. And it's called Satvic Snack Showdown. And I want both of you to flex your creativity with simple, wholesome, and Satvic snack ideas that parents can whip up for their kids.
We can share our favorite ones.
Yeah, so what I'm going to do is, how it's going to work is, I'll name an ingredient and let's see who can come up with a Satvic recipe or snack idea using each ingredient.
Okay.
And of course, one with the most answers wins. I'm going to win a hamper from Maate.
Okay.
So, Subha and Harsh, let's begin. Moong beans.
Moong bean omelette.
Very
So it's
good.
actually, we call it a moonglet. And it's really
Aha.
tasty.
It's like
For
moong,
breakfast.
moong dal chila.
It's a thicker version and a more fluffy version. And it's a delicious
Alright.
version. Yeah, you should try it.
Chilas are my favorite. I always have them. Banana.
Banana and peanut butter. Just combine the two and it's a delicious snack.
Lovely. Sesame seeds.
Sesame seed milk with dates. And black sesame seed milk with dates I had this morning. Delicious.
Very rich in calcium.
Oh, lovely.
Very tasty. And there's sesame ice cream.
Okay.
Black sesame ice cream is one of our most hit ice cream recipes that we have.
Is it in the book you just gave me?
It's in the new book.
That's about to come out.
Can't wait. And the last one is cucumber.
We have a cucumber, what do you call that? Where there's a dip on top.
Like
Chopped.
a cucumber canapé.
Yeah, that's tasty. What do we
So you
put on
just
top?
slice the cucumbers thin, like half an inch.
Okay.
And on top you put like a very dense dip of either peas, and you put a lot of flavoring inside it, or like corn and cashew and corn dip.
Interesting.
And
It's almost like a base. It's like
Yeah.
a
so
bread.
the cucumber forms the base,
Yeah.
and then there's this topping,
quite
dollop
tasty.
of topping on top.
Yeah.
I'm feeling hungry now. So that was it. Who won?
I think it's
So yeah, every game calls for a prize. And today I have this hamper for you guys from Maate. Thank you for playing this game with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You actually won it.
Thank you.
But Harsh, Subha, thank you so much for being here today on Maatehood. We mothers and parents in general are always full of questions, and what to feed our children is one of the most common questions among parents, and it's also one of the most confusing questions, which does not lead to very simple answers. So I'm sure with your answers here, a lot of parents are going to get benefited today. So thank you for sharing your wisdom, your deep insights, and everything you've been vocal about. I truly enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much for having us.
You asked some wonderful questions and you also kept it very light and engaging. And we also really enjoyed being here. Thank you.
Thank you. And wishing you lots of luck with your next book launch, which is coming, I guess.
Soon.
Next month.
Yeah.
And there's a book which is coming on what to feed your children, basically all the healthy recipes for children, and it is going to be launched in July.
Yes.
So do buy that book. I think that's going to be very useful. And keep supporting the Satvic movement. Thank you.
Thank you.